Hello, in this session we are going to be looking at Eliphaz's third speech and Job's response. So this begins the round 3. This round is a shorter round of speeches between Job and his 3 friends. For one, Zophar won't be speaking. In the first cycle, they talked in generalities. In the second cycle, the main theme was the fate of the wicked. In this third cycle, kid gloves are off, open disagreement. So let's look at Job 22, 23, and 24. Verses 1 through 3 says, Then Eliphaz the Temanite answered and said, Can a man be profitable to God? Surely he who is wise is profitable to himself. Is it any pleasure to the Almighty if you are in the right, or is it gain to him if you make your ways blameless? Eliphaz is accusing Job of being full of himself and asking, why do you think so highly of yourself? Eliphaz seems to believe in something called divine transcendence, meaning man is nothing in God's eyes. God doesn't need man, man needs God. God needs nothing, God lacks nothing. Since God is already perfect, he didn't create man out of a personal need. Therefore, man can give nothing to God. Now, there's some truth in some of the things he's saying. God doesn't need man. God lacks nothing. God is absolutely perfect. But he wants man. He wants a relationship with man. That's why we were created. So more half-truths from Eliphaz. Verses 4 through 11 say, Is it for your fear of him that he reproves you and enters his judgment with you? Is not your evil abundant? There is no end to your iniquities, for you have exacted pledges of your brothers for nothing, and stripped the naked of their clothing. You have given no water to the weary to drink, and you have withheld bread from the hungry. The man with power possessed the land, and the favored man lived in it. You have sent widows away empty, and the arms of the fatherless were crushed. Therefore snares are all around you, and sudden terror overwhelms you. Or darkness, so that you cannot see, and a flood of water covers you. So there's more you are wicked talk here, but he just doesn't seem to believe Job is a God-fearing man. And he can't imagine being wrong. Then he starts a groundless list of accusations against Job, mainly about greed and cruelty for the sake of riches. Finally, a sin, but it's not right. Eliphaz has no proof. It's not. We'll see Job hates these kind of things, hates mistreatment of the poor. But Eliphaz assumes it was because Job was once rich, and now it's all gone. So that would have been a just punishment if God took his money away because he mistreated the poor. But it's wrong. All these things are things that are committed against the poor. They're things that wicked businessmen do. Our society sometimes doesn't think it's all that bad. After all, you have to do what you have to do to survive in business. It's dog-eat-dog world. Some of the things he's talking about here is Job would tie people up in unfair contracts. He would take the clothes off of the poor people's back. He wouldn't give water to the thirsty. He wouldn't feed the hungry. He doesn't care about orphans and widows. He defrauds the poor and the helpless. In their society, every single one of these things was a social atrocity. Verses 12 through 20 says, Is not God high in the heavens? See the highest stars, how lofty they are? But you say, What does God know? Can he judge through the deep darkness? Thick clouds veil him so that he does not see, and he walks on the vault of heaven. Will you keep to the old way that wicked men have trod? They were snatched away before their time. Their foundation was washed away. They said to God, "Depart from us. And what can the Almighty do to us?" Yet he filled their houses with good things. But the counsel of the wicked is far from me. The righteous see it and are glad. The innocent one mocks at him, saying, "Surely our adversaries are cut off, and what they left the fire has consumed." Because Eliphaz believes Job doesn't know God, now he's going to teach him about God. He starts off with the basic idea that God is mighty and majestic and he's sovereign. All true. But Job doesn't need someone teaching him that. He knows that. In verses 16 and 17, where it talks about the foundational washing away, that could refer to the great flood when God destroyed the ancient world. So he sarcastically asked Job, "Are you going to keep going down this wrong path?" He says that the righteous are happy to be disciplined by God, but since Job is such a whiner, he's obviously evil. Verses 21 through 30 says, "Agree with God and be at peace. Thereby goodwill will come to you. Receive instruction from your mouth and lay up his words in your heart. If you return to the Almighty, you will be built up. If you remove injustice far from your tents. If you lay gold in the dust and gold of Ophir among the stones of the torrent bed, then the Almighty will be your gold and your precious silver. For then you will delight yourself in the Almighty and lift up your face to God. You will make your prayer to him, and he will hear you, and you will pay your vows. You will decide on a matter, and it will be established for you, and light will shine in on your ways. For when they are hunted, you say, 'It is because of pride.' But he saves the lowly. He delivers even the one who is not innocent, who will be delivered through the cleanness of your hands." So, surprise, he gives great advice. Turn to God. He gives a really great picture of the blessings that God showers on you when someone repents. But this doesn't apply to Job. Still truth in it. For someone that really needs to repent, turn to God and you will be blessed. He tells Job, throw away your gold, because that's what's driving you to sin and to neglect the poor. His gold is gone. This is the last we hear from Eliphaz. So let's look at Job's response in chapter 23 and 24. In verses 1 through 7, it says, "Then Job answered and said, 'Today also my complaint is bitter. My hand is heavy on account of my groaning. Oh, that I knew where I would find him, that I might come even to his seat. I would lay my case before him and fill my mouth with arguments. I would know what he would answer me and understand what he would say to me. Would he contend with me in the greatness of his power? No, he would pay attention to me. There an upright man could argue with him, and I would be acquitted forever by my judge.'" It seems like Job has suffered before and found solace in God, but right now he's not feeling God anywhere. More verses about Job wanting to present his case before the court, and he imagines that God is going to just find him innocent and he's not going to use his power when he comes and talks to him. And Job is going to find out. He is just setting himself up. Notice how many eyes there are in here. When God comes to talk to him, see if he uses eyes then. Verses 8 and 9 say, "Behold, I go forward, but he's not there, and backward, but I don't perceive him. On the left hand, when he is working, I do not behold him. He turns to the right, but I do not see him." So, something kind of interesting. Whenever they would give directions in their culture, when someone would ask directions, the person giving the directions would face east. So that left would always be north and right would always be south. So when he says on the left hand, when he is working, he's looking north. He turns to the right hand, but I do not see him. He's looking south. Job is saying, I am looking in every direction. There's an old Puritan writer who said, oh, you have gone forward and backward and you've looked to the left and you've looked to the right. Why don't you try looking up? When we are facing something, don't look around at the world. Look up to God. Verse 10 through 12 says, but he knows the way that I take. When he has tried me, I shall come out as gold. My foot has held fast to his steps. I have kept his ways and have not turned aside. I have not departed from the commandment of his lips. I have treasured the words of his mouth more than any portion of food. This is another bright flash of faith, and it's true. Job admitted, even though he couldn't get to God, he was still confident God was over this crisis. In these verses, he's saying God didn't forget him. God has a purpose in his life, and it's not to punish him. That something good was going to come out of this. That God still valued him. That he was being put through fire like a precious metal, and it's because he's precious that he's being put through this fire. Verses 13 through 17 say, but he is unchangeable, and who can turn him back? What he desires, that he does, for he will complete what he appoints for me. And many such things are in his mind. Therefore, I am terrified at his presence. When I consider, I am in dread of him. God has made my heart faint. The Almighty has terrified me. Yet I am not silenced because of the darkness, nor because thick darkness covers my face. In verse 13, when it says, but he is unchangeable, some versions say unique. There is no one like God. He makes and lives by his own rules. He is God. We are not. He tells us what to do. We don't have the right to tell him what to do. It seems to Job that he's on the path God wants him on, realizing God can be trusted. God does love and care for him. But at the same time, God is sovereign. And some of his ways are beyond our understanding. Job loves God, but he's still worried. He doesn't know God's plans. He doesn't know when it's going to end and if this is his future to be in this pain and misery for eternity. So Job's strongest statements of faith seem to be teamed with equally strong assertions of fear and pain. Going on into chapter 24, verses 1 through 8, it says, why are not times of judgment kept by the Almighty? And why do those who know him never see his days? Some move landmarks. They seize flocks and pasture them. They drive away the donkey of the fatherless. They take the widow's ox for a pledge. They thrust the poor off the road. The poor of the earth all hide themselves. Behold the wild donkeys in the desert. The poor go out to their toil, seeking game. The wasteland yields food for their children. They gather their fodder in the field, and they glean the vineyard of the wicked man. They lie all night naked without clothing and have no covering in the cold. They are wet in the rain of the mountains and cling to the rock for the lack of shelter. So, see, in these verses, Job is condemning those who do not take care of the poor. So when Eliphaz accuses him of that, that is probably very extremely hurtful to him. So Job's asking God, why don't you have regular court days to deal with the evil people? He wants the evil people dealt with now. but God has his timing. It's possible that there is a person that God wanted to bring to an evil person that would help that evil person see God and accept his love. And that evil person would change and would spend eternity with God. It's not up to us to decide. So in ancient days, the thing about the landmarks, their land was marked by specific landmarks, almost always a pile of rocks. So if you wanted to steal someone's land, you moved the rocks. So that's what it's talking about, an evil person doing that. When it talks about a poor widow coming for a loan, the evil lender would demand that she give her ox up while she paid for the loan. Well, then she's in a catch-22 situation because she needs the ox to plow her fields, but she can't plow her fields, meaning she can't plant her crops, meaning she can't get the money, meaning she's losing her land. Talks about poor people being like wild donkeys who have to forage for their food and they get wet and cold and they have nowhere to live. And in chapter 39, God is going to address these wild donkeys again. So remember that Job talks about them here. In verse 6, where it talks about gleaning, it's talking about gleaning after the main harvest, gathering what's left. So there's not a lot. When it talks about nakedness, it's not talking about total nakedness, but insufficient clothing. They didn't have a cloak or any kind of cover to protect them against the cold. Verses 9 through 12 say, there are those who snatch the fatherless child from the breast, and they take a pledge against the poor. They go about naked, without clothing, hungry, they carry the sheaves. Among the olive rows of the wicked they make oil. They tread the winepress, but suffer thirst. From out of the city the dying groan, and the soul of the wounded cries for help. Yet God charges no one with wrong. More bad stuff that the rich do to the poor. And Job says this with such contempt that there is no way he was doing this kind of stuff. It's about how the poor work for the rich, but they get nothing out of it. Job does not understand how the wicked are getting away from it. He doesn't see them being judged. He thinks God is paying no attention to his business. Well, God is. We have to trust him to take care of those kind of things. But it can be kind of tough. Verse 13 through 17 says, there are those who rebel against the light, who are not acquainted with his ways, and who do not stay in his paths. The murderer rises before its light, that he may kill the poor and needy, and in the night he is like a thief. The eye of the adulterer also waits for the twilight, saying, no eye will see me, and he veils his face. In the dark they dig through houses, by day they shut themselves up. They do not know the light, for deep darkness is morning to all of them. For they are friends with the terror of deep darkness. So he's talking about sins that happen under the cover of darkness. The murderer, the thief, the adulterer, they all work in darkness. And the light is their enemy. It is the opposite of the righteous person. Darkness is bad, but the light, that's God. Verses 18 through 21 says, you say, swift are they on the face of the waters. Their portion is cursed on the land. No treader turns toward their vineyards. Drought and heat snatch away the snow waters. So does Sheol those who have sinned. The womb forgets them, the worm finds them sweet. They are no longer remembered. So wickedness is broken like a tree. They wrong their barren, childless women and do no good to the widow. So these verses kind of imply that the evil die quickly. Not necessarily. And that they're forgotten in death, that the righteous are remembered and revered. Job's giving God advice on how to deal with evil people. Basically he's saying, don't wait on judging them, judge them now. But again, God has his reasons. Job knows in the end the evil will die and not be able to carry out their cruel activities again. They will die and they won't be able to carry out evil activities that affect anybody else once they die. Then verses 22 through 25 say, yet God prolongs the life of the mighty by his power. They rise up when they despair of life. He gives them security and they are supported, and his eyes are upon their ways. They are exalted a little while and then they are gone. They are brought low and gathered up like all others. They are cut off like their heads of grain. If it is not so, who will prove me a liar and show that there is nothing in what I say? So Job kind of turns around and says, well, maybe God is not wanting to judge evil people yet. He realizes God is not blind to sinners, even if it seemed like the wicked prosper temporarily. They will get their just dues. In verse 24, where it talks about they are cut off like the heads of grain, some versions say corn. When they reaped their corn harvest, they just took the tops off of corn. Job is saying the wicked are going to be judged the same way. So that is Eliphaz's last speech and Job's response. Next session, we'll be talking about Bildad, his very last speech, and it's very short, and then Job's response. So thank you again for joining me. And again, as always, if you like this session, please click like and consider subscribing. Thank you.